Hi, this is Eddie from Big Ed's Barbecue in Waukegan, Illinois, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network, sucker.
Hey, it's Jesse Rass here, and you've made the great escape into comics by jumping inside the pull bag today.
You've just jumped inside the pull bag. Join TFG1 Mike and the rest of the comic reading crew here at the GCRN as they make their great escape into comics. From DC, Marvel, IDW, Boom Studios, Zenoscope, and more, we have everything you want to read right here. Transformers comics? Yeah, we cover that. He-Man? Yeah, sure. DC superheroes like Batman, Batgirl, Nightwing, and Batman Beyond? Yep, we have those too. How about TMNT from IDW and I Hate Fairyland from Image Comics? Yeah, we have all that here. Plus, so much more. It's all inside the pull bag here on the Geekcast Radio Network. So without any further ado, it's time to talk about the comics we are reading right now here inside the pull bag.
Oh yes, but think of the fun.
Hello and welcome to the pull bag. This is episode 385. I am, of course, your host, TFG1 Mike, and today I am joined by Mr. Jeremy Fein. Hello, sir.
How are you, sir?
I'm okay, considering I finally have my computer back and I can actually do podcasting the way I want to now, the way it should be done, the correct way, and not on a phone, in a bedroom, on a desk. You know, it needs to be, on a computer, on a desk, all that good stuff. We are also joined by Edward and Kendra Hale. Hello.
Hiya.
What is up?
You guys sound like you're in a tunnel.
Maybe we are.
Is that from New York to New Jersey or from New Jersey to New York? Because it's either Metropolis or Gotham. Which one do you choose?
We're in Star City.
Damn, all right.
Oh, okay. Well, it could be worse. It could be Coast City.
Hey, man, I like Coast City and the associated material by Jeff Jones.
Central City's a little sketchy, though.
A little sketchy.
A little bit.
And nobody ever picks Bloodhaven, but,
Well,
Well, they did nuke Bloodhaven, so I'm just saying.
they have some weird dick in their town saving people. I don't know.
It's a little hairy, I know.
Oh, of course you would say that. All right, I say this all the time, folks. If you've been listening to the show since 2013, this is our 7-year, not today, but 2020 is our 7th year anniversary as of March 5th or 6th. I forget which day it is. But we are back here inside the pull bag, and we're going to be talking about some DC Black Label. I first decided to look at the Black Label titles with Superman Year 1. What a mistake that was.
Insert road here.
The first time on this podcast that we ever covered Superman was DC Black Label Year 1. Now, I like the Black Label idea. I like the fact that it's for us adults. It's more adult. It's basically the mature video games of DC Comics kind of thing. I think that's great. I think that's absolutely awesome. Issue 2 of Year 1 left me not so... That issue 1 I absolutely loved. Issue 2 of Superman Year 1, I was like, where is this going? I don't like this. And then I read the solicit for Year 1, number 3, and I'm like, well, it's going to be a while before my buddy Joe and I cover the rest of this. But I knew I wanted to do other Black Label titles, and what we're going to be talking about today, tonight, whenever you find people listening to this, if anyone even listens to this, is something all four of us love. Someone all four of us love in probably very different ways, in different incarnations throughout her creation. It is the clown princess of crime herself, Dr. Harleen Quinzel, with Stefan Sijix. I hope I pronounced his name properly. I probably didn't, because I just can't talk anymore, apparently. It's his 3-issue DC Black Label series, Harleen.
Yeah.
Insert applause here.
Yes, yes.
We're going to have a brief discussion on this one because Kendra and Edward, we haven't had this yet, but I'll just say it right now. While the world was falling apart, I saw Birds of Prey.
Okay.
And we had this huge argument on Facebook. A nice one. There were fists, but the point being is that I said that I saw the movie and I thought that it sucked because I enjoyed the animated series and I enjoyed the DC Harley Quinn show that came out, and her comics in New 52, which I couldn't shut up about. I know I've discussed them with you on separate podcasts, Mike. But the bottom line was, out of all the versions, I could not stand this. And we were about to talk about it, and I said, you know what? The world is turning to, you know what, as it is. There has to be something better. And I don't know what happened, but thankfully you came in somehow and you read our minds. This is a much better. I mean, I'm tired of origin stories. I've said it 10 months ago, and I'll say it now. I'm just, especially with the Joker movie that came out last year, I was like, I get it, move forward. This is going to be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, because here's the thing, and I know you're tired of origin stories, Jeremy. The thing of it is the origin stories aren't for us unless it's something we don't already know. Is there a new way to tell an origin story? Sure. But the reason why origin stories exist is that it's for people who may have never known the character or have, like, as soon as I saw, and we'll get into this once we get into the comic, but as soon as I saw, okay, Bob, now you're my number one. I heard Jack Nicholson in my head, but it's still an origin story that, you know, that...
I read it in that voice, too. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not?
You are my number one. Oh, God.
You see, I heard it as Hamill, I heard it as Arlene Sorkin, and I heard it as Kevin Conroy. That's how I heard it. Because I feel, again, I've discussed this as well, that Paul Dini, when he was working on the animated series, he was friendly with Arlene Sorkin. She was working on a soap opera in the 80s where during a dream sequence she dressed up as a Harley Quinn and she did what would be Harley's classic voice. And that's when he decided years later he was going to put her in the show as this one character, and she became popular, and finally by season 3 and 4 and onward she's become this huge thing, and people have this love-hate relationship towards her because some people don't like the fact that she came from an abusive relationship. Other people just find her to be annoying. They don't know why she's exploded into this fan base where they just feel that she just doesn't belong regardless. And then you have people like me that I've met the creators of New 52, Amanda and her husband, and I've said to them, you know, thank God you've made her where she's no longer on the one-handed side of a fist fight, where she has her own adventures, and it's not Betty and Veronica. And when she's with Ivy, they have these, you know, they're either fighting crime or they're hanging out. And again, I go back to the DC show that came out last year, and thankfully that's getting renewed. She's got something to her. And even when Paul Dini took over for her stories in the early 2000s, there were some good stories, too, in the Bronze Age before it became New 52. They had ones where she started her own gang. They had ones where she went to Hell, and Hell didn't know what to do with her anymore, and they sent her back. So this has always been a character that I don't know how you really feel about her, because I like her more from, like, New 52 onward. But I guess there's one version of Harley that's catered to you. So, and I know you used to do Legends of the Dark Knight, and of course, I loved your version, you know, your interpretation of Mad Love when you said that Harley needs to get some brains, and we'll talk about that. But I guess, like, what version of Harley do you love? Because Kendra, again, Edward and I, we've discussed this as well on my podcast when we discussed Arkham Knight. You didn't like the Tara Strong voice too much, as I recall, but which version of Harley do you like voice and character? Like, which one do you think defines this character?
Who do you want to answer first, me or her?
Well, ladies first, I guess.
There you go. Kendra?
Which is my favorite version of Harley? That's a more difficult question than it used to be, because if someone were to have asked me that, let's say 2 years ago, it would have immediately been Taz. That would have immediately been the image of Harley that I would have brought up, and that would have been the one that I related to the most. But since we've had so many iterations of Harley come out in the last 2 years, my favorite, I would have to say without a shadow of a doubt, would be either between this version in Harleen that we meet, or it would immediately be the animated series Harley, hands down.
And for me, basically, it's everything always comes back to the DCAU. Everything always does, and it always will. Every time I hear or I read or whatever, and I see Harley doing whatever she's doing, whether she's with Ivy, whether she's with the Joker, whether she's off on her own, whatever, I'm always going to hear Arlene Sorkin's voice in my head. I have not seen enough of, I actually haven't seen any of the DC Universe / HBO Max Harley series yet. I will eventually, but I haven't yet. But it's like,
I know, shame.
I haven't seen it yet. Hey, people want to send me
here.
People want to send me money to do so. Go ahead, tfgmike@gmail.com. Anyway, my point is that while I've heard Tara Strong's version of the voice, and I think it's a good version, it's not the voice I hear in my head when I read the character. And for me, just like Kendra said, it all comes down to the DC Animated Universe whenever she shows up. Whether it's Batman the Animated Series, whether it's Superman, Justice League, whether it's, Batman Beyond. You girls, I slave over a hot stove. Why I oughta? Oh, I love old lady Harley. Anyway, or whether it's this version. What?
Yeah, no, I agree with you because with Tara Strong, I love her, and I know you've interviewed her, but the problem with Tara Strong's Harley is that it sounds like, well, she voices Bubbles from Powerpuff Girls, so it's like that episode where Bubbles went hardcore against Mojo Jojo, and that was where. But the problem is that when she continued to do Harley in other DC animated series that I think was on one version of Cartoon Network or somewhere where they kind of like Superhero Girls or something.
Yeah,
and then there was like two other versions of that where my point being is that it's Bubbles grown up and it just doesn't work for me. And then they try to put her in the Scooby-Doo movies and it's still the same thing. I feel that it's Arlene Sorkin because she was just able to do that nasally Brooklyn accent. And then, over the years, Kaylee Cuoco, who took over, Penny from Big Bang and became Harley, I can't put the actor and the voice together because it doesn't sound like Penny. And that's perfect. And I would go back to New 52 and I would put, Kaylee's voice with New 52 because, again, this is a chick you just definitely don't want to mess with. I can take her seriously now. When that movie came out that I saw for free as luck had it because nobody was in the theater. Literally, I walk into the movie theater, nobody's at the box office, nobody's at the concession stand. It's like nobody was around, so I just walk into the auditorium and the movie starts playing. Apparently, the theater was unlocked and the projector was on a timer, so the staff forgot to come in. And I was like, well, okay, so I saw it by myself. But Margot Robbie is no Harley Quinn. So comic book wise, though, I have to go with Amanda and Jimmy, who did a great job writing and giving.
This is where I get to jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Okay. I actually saw the new Harley Quinn movie thanks to HBO Max and the request of my wife who saw it opening day in theaters.
Yep, opening night.
Opening night in theaters. So I went into it with the immediate assumption that it was going to be a complete turd ball a la Suicide Squad. And I was actually kind of taken aback a little bit because there was actually some really decent shit in there. Some things were kind of drawn out for, I guess, runtime or effect or one or another. The brawl at the end, I'm going to go out and say, it just felt like a music video. But I actually enjoyed the movie. And a lot of that was because of Margot Robbie. And I'm not going to shit on her Harley because James Gunn was like, yo, bitch, come on, let's go do this the right way. And she was like, I'm fucking down. And we're about to see this movie here in the next year-ish. So, but favorite Harley? I'm going to go back to Taz because that's the Harley I met first. But reading this new Harleen, I would pick up a monthly in a heartbeat of this book because it's just that damn good.
Yeah. On a whole, and most people should know this, but DC Black Label, essentially, it's 3-issue series. It's not complete ongoings or anything like that. It's basically just mini series and one shot kind of deals. And Harleen, actually, what surprised me the most about this comic was, number one, how smooth Stefan's art style is and how fluid it is, as well as they make it about Harleen, Dr. Harleen Quinzel. He makes it about her. He doesn't make it a Joker and Harley adventure where she's just on the sidelines. You get glimpses, like these first few opening pages of it. You know, she's in a dream, clearly, because Gotham didn't grow a bat monster. Not yet, anyway. You know, there too. Yeah. And then you see him and her with her and her Harley outfit, but it's a glimpse of it. It's not like, this isn't just your average Batman book. And Batman, what I love about this book is that Batman is on the fringes of it. He is on the outside almost. He's there. Everybody that you would expect in Gotham is in this book, and it surprised me at every single turn. It really did. Like, how Stefan put the characters we all know and mostly love. Some people like Mr. Freeze, some people don't like the Penguin, whatever. You like who you like, you don't like who you don't like. But it's like the way, like, this is solely a Harleen and Joker story. This is about how they met. This is about how their perception of each other is.
Actually, this is a Harleen story.
Yeah.
The Joker just happens to be
there.
The one bad day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he manipulated it, though.
Today where all it takes is one bad day to drive the sanest man insane.
Mm-hmm.
You have a trained psychologist who obviously has her own shit going on. She's a normal human being, and that's one thing I absolutely adored about this series is it like fleshed out that person like no one had ever done for me before. You know?
Yeah.
But Joker was literally the bad seed of this book. He wasn't. This isn't a Harley Joker story. This is Harleen and how she got bent, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. One of my favorite lines, and we'll let Kendra talk here in a second. One of my favorite lines in this comes in the first chapter. I guess there's something to be said about walking toward the light. You tend not to notice the shape of your own shadows. And that's the panel where she's walking into Arkham. And I'm like, wow, that just kind of hits hard right there. Because the choices she makes in this, even though later on Batman tries to see it as, oh, well, the Joker twisted her. He twisted her, he tainted her, he basically set her up because he had that file. And once again, in every episode of the podcast, I always have to talk about Comixology's guided view. With this book, the entirety of it, the way they did this, the one page where it's her at her desk and it's all the files and the folders, the way they do it in the guided view and they zoom in basically storyboard by storyboard to show you each of the characters that she's looking at in her files, like Mad Hatter and Croc, and thank God he didn't hit him with a rock, Ivy and all that. It was just really cool. I love how they utilize their technology for that.
Oh, definitely. But the other thing that I found interesting, too, is that we're going to also be reintroduced to the first Batman villain, Dr. Hugo Strange. Because he was also a psychiatrist that was obsessed with the criminally insane, and he was also obsessed with Batman, and he's probably, as far as I knew, the first guy who drove Batman insane. He pretty much did what Joker couldn't do. He broke Batman. And this is in the 70s. And for a while, he had to dress and be Batman. And I kind of like, in this version, because I always thought, if you're going to do an origin story, what can you do different that you already haven't told us? Kendra, quick question for you, because we also discussed Mad Love, and my biggest question is that Harleen wanted to be part of Arkham Asylum because she wanted to do a tell-all book and make a profit. But in this version, however, I kind of wonder if she is being set up to fail, because in Mad Love, the graphic novel, not the episode on Taz, she did seduce her psychology professor to keep her gymnastics scholarship. But in this universe, apparently, she did date a professor, but nobody says anything about it. But the only one who seems to be jealous is her roommate. And then somehow, throughout all of this, and we'll get into it, she's able to work at Arkham. Kendra, I know you've talked about Harley a lot too, but I'm just kind of curious. Do you think that there is some sort of setup or something going on, or somebody is looking for Harleen to fail this time and Joker's just like stringing things along, or do you think all this is just a pure coincidence?
Oh, come on, Puddin'. Don't you want to rev up your Harley? Vroom, vroom.
The easiest way to put that is, do I see that there is a conspiracy for Harley to fail? Yes, absolutely. Cedric sets that up beautifully in Harleen, because as you read along, there's really not anything that he leaves on the floor. Everything that is a part of these comics is there for a purpose, and there is a reason that he shows it to the readers. Whether that's you looking at her dating Collins, the professor, and that immediately setting off, the perception that people will have on her. Certain people, not all people, but certain people will have the perception that she's basically just a slut sleeping her way to the top in any performance that she may get. Any success that she gets is based on her sex. That is set up beautifully. So there is that there always in the background of her head, that the only reason that she moves forward is always going to have some kind of traction behind it, whether that's from the male or female perspective. When she gets into Arkham and finally gets the chance to start doing her research, not only is the staff of Arkham mostly not behind her, but that's not because of anything Harley's done. That's because of the past precedents that have been set by all psychiatrists that have come into Arkham. Not any good has come from it at any turn. So that's something that she steps into that is against her. And when it comes to the Joker conspiracy, there's a specific scene where you see a guard who's being blackmailed by Joker give him a file. Mm-hmm. Of course there's a manipulation, because that's one of the things that this keys in on. Like Ed said, this is not a love story between Joker and Harley, and that's one of the main things that I love about this series so much. It was never meant to be a love story. It was to show you how a human can fall, and someone who wants nothing more than good to come from their work is going to fail, because Joker is feeding into that side of her. So yes, there is a conspiracy there from my point of view.
Yeah, I always found it, again, because I work in the field, and when in Mad Love, Harley announces out in the open that she's looking to do a tell-all book, look, you'd be fired right on the spot. And I guess in, Batman universe, that's just a setup for an origin to become, a member of Arkham. And it's kind of interesting, too, because it seems like there's only one major penitentiary in Gotham, and there's only one mental institution in Gotham. Convenient. And from the Arkham video games to the comics, from Bronze Age onward, it is amazing that anytime anyone tries to work in Arkham or Blackgate, they end up either dying, dead, or physically and psychologically maimed. I know Cash is not in this story. He's in the Arkham games, and he was in Living Hell. But it would have been nice to see him in this, or flesh him out a little more, because he's also an interesting character. I thought he was in this story, but I guess not. But yeah, it is fascinating that everyone who walks in there either walks out dead or maimed or an inmate. So Harleen's going to be no exception.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, and just to cut in there real quick, when it comes to Arkham and to Blackgate, I think the reason why these are usually the places that are first and foremost on not only Gotham spectrum, but also on psychiatrists, is because these are where the baddest of the bad are housed, the most psychotic of examples that can be found. And if I were trying to go in to see, if my theory of empathy were to be correct, I would have gone the exact same path Harley did. I would have wanted into Arkham and Blackgate just to see what was held behind the walls. So I understand why those are the ones that are the most brought up. We're not going in to see a local robbery or a domestic abuse case. We're going in to see the worst of the worst, because that's what's going to catch the attention of people who are going to fund her work.
Exactly. And what I find so ironic is that who funds her work is Mr. Bruce Wayne. I'm like, wait a minute.
He's the world's greatest detective. He's the world's greatest detective, and again, one day when we get to other stories, he knows, and I think that he was trying to save her, because again, I go back to when he does his research, he knows more. Like Joker, he gets his resources, but one's trying to manipulate and the one's trying to save, and not really trying to harm unless there's no other choice. That's what Batman does. But unfortunately, Harleen's just not going to listen, because in every version, she never listens to anything that Bruce Wayne or Batman has said to her. And we'll get there in this story as well. But I do find it fascinating, because we're only in the first few pages of this book, because there's 3 of them. But I can't believe, ironically, that the voice of reason is Dr. Hugo Strange. I don't know if this is year 1 of Hugo Strange or he's manipulating, but he seems to call Harleen on her bullshit, because she does in the beginning. She is trying to give a lecture about psychiatry, and people are just bored, and she's using $10 words, and she's upset. And then when she goes to Hugo Strange and tries to give her, she's not trying to crack a code for fortune or fame yet, which is what she's done in the past. Here she actually is trying to find a way to get through to inmates, and Hugo is calling bullshit. And, oh, well, you're trying to come up with a new theory for yourself. And she's like, no, he actually gives her the hand. I love that panel. It's just like he face palms her. And that's something that, of every version I've seen of Hugo Strange, I've never seen him do talk to the hand. I've met a lot of psychiatrists that have done that to me, and I want to take my hand and smack them across their face, as unprofessional as it is, because I think you're wrong. You don't dismiss me like that. Especially,
how does that make you feel, Jeremy?
Well, because I got to be honest. I really believe that Harleen, in this version, is trying to have good intentions, trying to at least get through to the criminally insane. She's not after doing a tell-all book the way she has in the past, and she's definitely not looking to make a quick buck. But I think the other problem is nobody's listening to her because she's an attractive blonde. And Stephen, who's written Witchblade in the past about half-naked women, I guess I can understand that, and this is the most shapely I've ever seen Harleen in. But still, I think that Harleen has some good intentions, and it's not, social justice or anything. It's just that people are just tired of hearing, oh, I can change these criminally insane inmates, but no one can, and Batman will just beat them up and throw them back into the bay. And that's pretty much how it's always been.
Well, it's like when she's in the middle of drinking, when she goes to the alcohol, she says, and this is her whole point, I think, for this entire series, that's the problem with these so-called supervillains. They're more interested in telling you about who they are now She wanted to know how they snapped, who they were before they snapped, and how they went through snapping to becoming the villains that they are.
Well, that's easy for Hatter and Penguin and Two-Face, because they may change it a scooch depending to keep up with the times. But Joker, even if you got a definitive origin, it could always change, and it's multiple choice. And if you find that the mystery, there is no mystery, or as Joker said, once you tell the joke, there is no joke. I have hypotheses on the Joker code, but I think that even if you really knew the truth at this point, it doesn't really matter. He is what he is, and she is what she is. And this is going to be an ongoing debate on both of them either masking or cocooning and becoming their new form. I mean, I've had so many discussions about these two, but this is a version that I don't know if it's the definitive, but it's the most interesting to see where they would really go and do in this universe, or at least in one of many. Does he actually finally care about Harley?
And I don't know. That's the thing. Like, I thought by the end of this, I was going to know if he actually does care about her. But then there's that whole scene with Batman and Alfred. And I'm like, no way. I know the Joker's smart, but come on. He couldn't have... Oh, crap. He played her.
Well, Kendra, what do you think about this one? Do you think that in this universe, or any universe, that has Joker ever really cared about Harley?
Waiting for like the hate mail on this one, but no, I don't believe that he actually has. I think that he's looked at her and he's played her exactly how he wanted to the entire time. Was there maybe a fascination? Possibly. Absolutely, I'll give it fascination, but I don't believe that there was ever any part of him that was literally in love with her. I don't think that Joker rightly knows what love truly is. I don't think that that's a emotion that he can truly understand. But I think that one of the best parts about this series is that when you look at it, you get to see from these characters a human aspect, and I really, really do like that. I like seeing them making what are absolutely reasonable, logical, and could be real-life choices. The humanizing factor, I think, is what makes this Harley so much better than the other one.
Okay, and then I guess my other question to you, Kendrick, is again, we've watched the animated series, and I guess all of us have watched Gotham at one point or another, and especially The Dark Knight to death. If we get an origin or a retelling, this is Harvey Dent's, I guess, for the 15th time. What did you think of this version of Harvey? Because I have to go with Aaron Eckhart in Dark Knight and Richard Mall in the animated series, where he really got fleshed out. He's always been this superstitious guy who needed a coin to make decisions, but then he has repressed anger, and now he's literally two-faced and one bad day and blah, blah, blah. But I don't think many people know what to do with Harvey. What are your thoughts on this one? Do you think that he's useful to the story, or do you think it's just like it's another Batman villain and he doesn't need to be here?
Actually, if I were to look at it objectively, I think that this is the best time we've gotten. I think this is also one of the most intimate versions of Harvey that we've gotten, where we get to see him actually descend into the madness caused by that solid sense of justice that he has. You have two different versions of a person that you get to watch. You get to see Harley, who all she wants is to feel like her work matters and to feel validated and to have worth with what she's trying to do in a world where nobody cares about what she's trying to do. And then you have Harvey, who is in a seat of power and is trying to make his city a better place. And he's failing because he's watching as all of the work that everyone around him is doing is tied up in legal jargon. He makes a very valid point of it with Joker about how they have him for all of these crimes, but yet the judges and the juries never want to find him in Blackgate because of a potential riot or by giving him basically the light to the match of a bomb. They don't want to give him that. And so he's stuck. He's stuck in a dynamic where he never gets what he truly wants. And it isn't until he gets the acid poured that you get to see just what is going on in Harvey's head. So for me, I think that Harvey is not only relevant in this book, but that he carries a bit of the weight for the story as well, to see the dynamic between the choices that both he and Harley make throughout the series.
Mike, what do you think about all the...
I mean, this is basically, and it actually is something that Stefan points out when she's talking to the Joker, when she writes the names on the wall, when she writes Harvey and Harley, and then obviously she wipes it away to reveal the ha-ha. But honestly, Harley and Harvey, it's two sides of a very different coin, because she goes one way, he goes another way, and she even says it in the book, and within 5 months we'll both be murderers. And they were.
Yeah, and I do love the origin of the coin in this one, because again, I go back to the coin always felt like a prop, like he just uses an excuse. And even in Dark Knight, before he gets his face burned, he's always pretending he's going to use that scarred side of the coin. He really isn't. But in this one, the coin has a story.
Yeah. And
it's a really disturbing one. It was about a murderer who got on parole, and someone that Harvey tried to put away and he couldn't, and now he just keeps that as a reminder. So I'm glad that the coin finally makes sense about why Harvey is starting to shape into what he's going to become. Yep. Is it the best version, though, of Harvey? It's one of them. I just wish, sometimes I feel he's shoehorned in, but then I kind of feel that, yeah, he was next to Gordon, one of the last corrupt members of Gotham, because Gotham had a lot of corrupt officers, a lot of corrupt politicians, and it just couldn't be Jim Gordon, the only one good cop. So yeah. I do like the fact, though, that we did have Harvey, but it's also going to be very tragic on every time he tries to do good, no matter what. He's just going to become Two-Face regardless. It's just going to awaken eventually, and we'll see how that sleeping giant comes. But
I think the thing of it is that the problem with Harvey Dent / Two-Face is you can go, pun intended, one of two ways with him. You can go the hokey, I'm gonna rob the second bank on the second day of the second month at 2:22 p.m. or whatever. You can go all the two ways. You can go that way and be hokey with it, or you can go the tragic way and be really serious and see the venom that he has because of his, we see it in this. We actually see it in this. I don't. We see it in this because everyone keeps correcting him. Everyone keeps asking him. We, us, I mean, me, myself, you know what I mean? I love this version. I'm right there with you. I see Aaron Eckhart in this as far as the Two-Face version. I don't really see Richard as the scar, because the way Sejcik's art is, it's very, I don't want to say realistic, but it's more real world than cartoon kind of thing. I think the most, even though it's very violent, the most cartoonic shot in this entire book, and it doesn't even look like a cartoon, is when she's in her dream sequence. Don't you touch my pudding. Like when we finally see that part of Harley in her dream sequence, because it's Harleen dreaming about who she's going to become. Like, that's the most animated series I feel on this book. But with Harvey, it feels like it's the real deal. It's the Dark Knight. It's, you either, live long enough to see yourself become the villain or you die a hero. And Harvey's a villain now.
Actually, I'm going to interject real quick.
Okay.
The most thing that I saw in this Harvey Dent, which I actually adore, was a lot of Jeff Loeb from The Long Halloween.
Yeah.
And I saw the humanization of the character. I saw him dealing with his inner struggles, his own inner demons, and then I saw what that accident did, and it made him snap. And well, not accident, you know what I'm talking about. But,
Yeah.
you know, he tried to just pick himself back up after it and just carry on with what he was doing, but it's too many scars ran too deep. So,
Yep. Absolutely. How did you guys feel about the art? Start with Ed, then go to Kendra, then Jeremy.
the art, I loved it. I mean, I was riveted throughout the book. I mean, Kendra and I both are, friends with Stephen or however you pronounce his name. But we're friends with him on Facebook, and we have the privilege of seeing his art whenever he posts it. And just, Jesus Christ, it's amazing. I mean, it didn't feel like this was somebody new to the Batman universe, for lack of a better term. It felt like he knew what he was doing, and he knew where the shadows needed to be, and just, it was perfect. Kendra.
Yeah, I mean, I got lucky enough to do the reviews for this for Dark Knight News, and for most of my reviews that I get asked to do, I go in blind. And this was one that I could not go in blind because I'd seen him posting the artwork for months ahead of release, and how he would do just snippets of teaser art and conception sketches. And not only do I agree 100% that he had a very clear vision for how he wanted not only Harley to look, but for the rest of the cast. I mean, he set himself up to, if DC were to be like, hey, I would like to do a Poison Ivy or a Gotham City Sirens, or I want to do this type of thing, that he made sure that there were hints dropped in there that he would be able to do that. And I know he's working on his own stuff right now, so he's not looking into anything DC, but I still have my fingers crossed that we might get a crossover with Ivy and Swamp Thing. I'm absolutely hands down 100% for that.
Amen.
But
take my money.
I mean, the artwork in this it's beautiful. Anything that you see here is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, like I said, he clearly had ideas and visions for each one of these characters, and it's almost like looking at the same type of artwork that Alex Ross portrays. He always has a clear vision because he has people in his mind when he thinks of specific characters, and that's who he builds upon. And it's the same type of thing that you see with Cedric's work. I absolutely adore it. So the artwork, hands down, was phenomenal, and I could have gone on for another 500 pages.
Jeremy?
There is a love letter to Alex Ross, hands down. And this is a man, as I said, that worked on Witchblade. And he did a lot more than just make a half-naked woman run around in a metal bikini. I feel, and I've always said this, can you take a cartoon character and make them less cartoony and more human? And that always seems to be a challenge. And somehow this man not only did it, he made them look less like a Warner Brothers cartoon. And I'm not taking away anything that happened with the animated series.
Right.
I mean, I'm not taking anything away from that, or even in the comics. I understand it's very hard to take these characters and make them look human. But there is a reason why experimental, not just to make Harleen look, more shapely or anything, but it's just the facial expressions that I see when she's exasperated or harried or contemplating on whether or not she is trying to do the right thing, on really believing that she can get through to Zaz and Jervis Tetch and Waylon Jones and Pamela Isley, better known as Croc, Mr. Zaz, Mad Hatter, and Poison Ivy. But I also love at the end of book 1 that we see Joker holding Harleen in her arms, and her eyes are closed, and she has that smile. And it almost feels, when I saw the Alex Ross version of Joker holding Harleen Quinzel in his arms when she had her Harley Quinn outfit on. So the man definitely knows how to draw cartoon characters, comic book characters human, and he does it very well. But not only with the characters, it's also interesting how he's making several inanimate objects come to life. Harvey's coin, or even Joker's teeth in Harleen's nightmares when she wakes up and there's this giant, vampiric smile next to her, or the hands trying to come and grab her and pull her into the dream world, or even when Harleen and Harvey are walking away from each other when they're out in the park, and we see what Harvey will become as Two-Face and Harleen Quinzel will become as Harley. It all works out very well. And even when Joker's in the rubber room and we see the tiles and we see, I guess the fading of the rubber room, just the different of whites and grays. The guy definitely knows his work. He's been doing this for 40-somewhat years. And not only does he have my attention, he's got my interest. And I would have loved to see him do more with DC.
Yeah. Yeah, his shadow work in this with Harleen and Joker is amazing. Like, every time you see her and before she ends up, actually in the cell, every time you see her in front of the glass, it's like, oh, if you light the glass, their shadows are going to tell you something in the image. The thing with, like you said about Two-Face and Harley, showing who they're going to become. And then the little touches, like, I just can never get behind Killer Croc. There is not a story out there, not even this one.
Yes, there is. There is. I swear. If you have a chance to get it through your local library, there are these compilation of books called Arkham Stories, I think they're called. You got to search for it. But There is a compilation of Killer Croc stories, and there is one called Requiem of a Killer, and it was back in the 80s when he was created. And for those of you who don't know, born with a skin condition and was teased, and eventually decided to file down his teeth and become a professional wrestler and a sideshow freak, and then decided to become a Gotham inmate. And then over the years, they made him a mutant. But in Requiem for a Killer, he's abused by his grandmother. He hides in the sewers. He comes across a herd of homeless people, because in the 80s that's what they did. When they lost everything, they would end up in the sewers in New York, California. And Waylon Jones, a.k.a. Killer Croc, does decide to take them under his wing. And he actually is a very good leader. And he actually does a lot more for them. And he actually cares for them and vice versa, because they don't think of him as a freak. And so he has good intentions, but things sadly turn south, and I don't want to give it away. If you're really interested in the story, it's very bittersweet. But yeah, and there's another novel I got to look for where we see an origin of Croc in a sideshow, and he's trying to protect this little blind girl that's part of the act. And unfortunately, when the freak show was sold to another carnival barker who abuses all the sideshow freaks, and there's a mob and a riot, the little blind girl dies in Killer Croc's arms, and that's when he decides to become a villain. And so if you have the right script and you know what to – the director of Dark Knight, Nolan, I'm sorry. Nolan was considering putting Croc in either Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises, and Tiny Tim Leister, who had that small cameo on the ferry about giving you the bomb and he throws it out, I thought that was going to be Croc. So I know that the animated series made him out to be this big dumb guy who goes like, I throw a rock at him, and everybody hates that version. If you go back to the comics we created in the 80s and you go to New 52, yeah, there are some better stories where he can be taken seriously. They just didn't know what to do with him, sadly, in the animated series or Suicide Squad. But I can assure you, right writer can do it.
Right, but my point here is that he doesn't really like, and honestly, I personally think that was I threw a rock at him. I think that was by the time that Batman had already dispatched him, and it was Batman. It was not Killer Croc. in the cartoon in Almost Got Him. That was not Killer Croc. That was Batman as Killer Croc. My point here is, though, I want to see other characters from this in future stuff that Stefan does, because how he portrays Ivy, like her living being, the fact that Harley brings her soil, or was it? Yeah, it was Harley, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So she can do her plant thing. Like, I want to see a Harley and Ivy version from this guy, because what he did here with her and Joker was just amazing. And again, the art, it's the little touches. Like when Harleen asks Commissioner Gordon, so is there some kind of protocol to meeting him? He's the Batman, not the fucking Queen of England.
Yeah.
That and the Tim.
Everybody can cuss in this.
Oh, what?
It just feels realer that way, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The and the other little nod that I noticed, and there are plenty of nods and homages in this, but I'm like, wait a minute, those coffee cups. Hey, I know those guys. Tim and Deanie on the coffee cups. That was cool.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I love this art. I love the coloring. I love all, like I said before, the shadows. Even though this is not a Batman story, I wish I'd seen a little bit more of the Batmobile. But other than that, it's fine. What I also loved in the art was,
oh my lord,
the what?
The plane, though. Oh my god.
Yeah, that was a little nuts.
I was like, dude, it's a fucking Decepticon.
That's right.
or even the close-up of Two-Face, like after the acid is thrown at him. Because I've seen so many versions. I mean, again, I'll go back to the very first version was in '89 when they had a compilation of Batman stories, and they threw the vat of acid, and then unfortunately Batman Forever, because I guess you just need paper to cover one side of not getting acid thrown at you kids. Remember that. But
it's Tommy Lee Jones, man. We don't question Tommy Lee Jones.
But here, when they throw acid at Harvey, it almost looks like he's going to werewolf out, and you see like the side of his face being melted away, and then him holding up his arm, and just seeing like the acid going through the rest of his body. And I've never seen that before in comics. I've always seen it just like they're throwing it at his face, and I guess because of censorship, and again, they have to think about the kids. Won't somebody think of the children? But since it's a DC Black Label, they go all out and show how horrific it is to be burned alive by acid, not just his face, but his entire left side of his body, burning in agony. And I actually felt it this time more than I've ever felt it before when acid was thrown at him in The Long Halloween, or even in Forever, or what they did with him in Dark Knight. Even the Telltale game, they kind of changed it around where he actually gets attacked during a press campaign, and Penguin takes half of him and throws it into one of the stage lights, and his face gets burned because of that. So, but you don't really see much. I mean, this is the first time I'm actually seeing him writhing in pain.
Yeah.
So kudos to, again, Steven for the artwork and going all out.
I've read a lot of comics in the 7 years that this podcast has been going on. I don't think and I could be wrong, I probably am, most likely. I don't think I've ever seen a comic do the first-person point of view. In the beginning of book 2, you see it through, again, she's dreaming. You see it through Harley's eyes, and she's got her slapstick bat. And this is right before she does the "Don't touch my pudding" line. And I'm like, that is so cool. Like, not necessarily a first-person shooter, but a first-person POV. That is what is again, just one. It's the little things in this art that make it so good. Wouldn't you say, Kendra?
Yeah, I do. I agree 100% that it's the little things. I like that we get all of the nuances in this book that not only harken to different points of time in the Harley, Joker, Gotham City, Batman, everything spectrum. I like that you get those and you get to see where where they come from, basically, in this canon. Because this isn't like any of the other canon that you see specifically for Harley. You always get, the toxic relationship, and you get, the after effects. But this is the first one where you actually get to see it not only put into depth, but with an explanation given with the little things that you get to pick up on. And it just makes it so much more enjoyable for a reader.
Absolutely. Okay, what was each of your favorite scenes? You go first, Ed.
Houston, we have a problem.
Favorite scene? Well, there were two. Well, was quite a few, more than two, but my laugh out loud moment was at the end when Bruce is sitting there reading the file and the video of them kissing in the background, and Alfred's standing there and he's explaining everything about the Joker's motivations surrounding Harley to Alfred. I'm like, bitch, I figured this out an issue and a half ago. I saw this in a panel where he looked at this fucking file about Harleen Quinzel. Thank you, Batman, for catching up late. But the fucking Ivy page when she breaks out, Jesus Christ, it was amazing. I mean, the depth and details that you see that he put in the artwork here, it was nuts. And as an artist myself, I was just like, damn, I'm outclassed in every single way. Fuck, alright. But, I mean, this, everything. The scene where he's holding the gun at her, and it's got the little panels in there of her life flashing before her eyes. I mean, I'll stop at that, but we'll go to Kendra next. And I'll shut up now.
I mean, of every book that I've had the chance to review or even just read and enjoy without having to worry about what I needed to say about it, I mean, this one is one that has a lot of different moments that are good. If I had to pick a favorite, my favorite would probably be where, dang, it's harder than I thought. I was going to go with Alfred saying to Batman how they both look like they're crazy and like they're both there in that moment. And he doesn't describe it as love. It's just that they're crazy about each other. And that's probably one of the best ways I've seen it put. So I think I am going to go with that one because Alfred stole the show for me. That's my favorite moment of it.
Jeremy?
Yes, I admit it. I am Batman.
I think it has to go back to when Harleen always believes that she has the upper hand, that she knows how to get through the Joker. And we've always seen versions like 2 minutes later, she's now on the couch and he's just taking notes and he's the psychiatrist and she's the patient. There's a great moment where she feels that she's going to get into his head and she's wearing this black mini dress and this red top, and all of a sudden we see a transition where she looks like Little Red Riding Hood and he transitions into the Big Bad Wolf, and then he's asking her questions like, how many times do you come and watch me sleep in my cell and study me? And then all of a sudden we see this transition where he's a psychiatrist and now she's dressed as an inmate and she has a straitjacket and she's chained to the chair. And I feel that every time she thinks that she knows him or she's going to figure him out, no, he knew from day one how to play her like a 2-bit piccolo. And then when she finally decides, because there's also a time when she finally decides that she's going to give in and she thinks that, it's love. There are 2 X-rated Batman movies, and this is like one of them, in a moment where she's going to undress in front of him and just like, take off your pants, doctor's orders. And I kind of hear like the porn music in the background. But I've always, like I said, it doesn't answer my question, like, what kind of relationship do they really have? Because in her mind, down the road, she's in love with him. He never shows it. And this has never really been brought up before because he's always theatrical. I thought he is into something totally different. But apparently they do mate or whatever it is, or at least in her mind, that's what they're doing. But again, it just shows that no matter what she does, he's playing her. And again, it's that debate. Does he love her? Does he not? Did he finally fall in love with her? Does he really need her? I don't think any of that really matters. That's the joke. But out of all the ways that he's finally gotten to her, I think this is possibly the most adult version of what they're like when he is playing her and she's trying to get through to him. And he's definitely a DC version of Hannibal Lecter. He's always been compared to Lecter. Well, he's been compared to Lecter since Silence of the Lambs came out. But now this is finally personified it, that this is Hannibal Lecter and this is Clarice, and what would happen if, things went a little more south in a way. And yeah, I think that this, because that Hannibal movie and book definitely didn't work, but this one does.
Yeah. I think for me, there are so many, and I love all the homages. Like, we said before, Bob, you're my number one guy now. Like,
and Bob, remember, you are my number one guy. Yes, sir.
You can't not hear Jack in there. But for me, it probably, it's not often that I see Joker making bat puns. But the scene in the very beginning, hey, Bat, you got us blinded. Well, how's this for echolocation? Make some noise, boys. I just absolutely love that, because this is not, and I should have said this at the beginning, this is a younger version. This is not exactly the old clown. Not that he's super old, but I read somewhere that he's supposed to be younger in this than what we normally see him as. And everything that goes through with this book, the only other one that I'll mention is that, when we get to when Harley's like, so how do we get hold of Batman? Because I need to ask him a question. And what I love and what Stefan did was that, in her asking Batman the question that she asks him, she says before she asks it, I need a reason. And in her mind, she says, to go on. That, to me, was really powerful.
Fully agreed.
Yeah. But I do have to ask one other thing, because there was also artwork, if you did get the commonality or from me from the library. There seems to be artwork towards the end of the book where there's a 3D set of cards where they're popping out of the cards. That Joker's popping out of the Joker card holding Harley and the Queen card, and right behind them is Pamela Isley with the Ace of Spades Queen card, and she's not happy. Like, she's ready to strangle Joker. I'll never really know what Pamela Isley and Harley's relationship really is, whether it's Thelma Louise or not. I guess people would like it to be a bisexual relationship, but I like to think that they're friends. If you want to think that they're girlfriends, I guess that's just, if for that fantasy. But Harleen doesn't really have many friends when she was Harleen, because, well, nobody really either wanted to take her seriously, or they thought that she just wanted to sleep away to the top. Ivy relates to her because they're both outcasts, and I think that's why they have the best chemistry. So I do like the fact that Ivy is always out there to protect Harley, especially in this version when she saves Harley from Croc. But I am just kind of curious, though, and again, Kendra, ladies first, what are your thoughts on this Harley-Ivy relationship in this story?
For Harleen specifically, I think that the relationship between Harley and Ivy hasn't even really begun yet. I mean, at this point, we're still in baby steps. She's obviously earned enough respect from Ivy, but that's to be seen from Harley doing her job. and having compassion. She listened to what Ivy has called her out on several times, from writing on dead trees to giving her sunlight. I mean, for right here and now, for this specific world where it is, I don't believe that there is anything more than a relationship of mutual respect. Maybe a budding friendship, maybe. But at this point in the game, they're just at the beginning of it. And I think that her stopping Waylon was that sign of mutual respect. She's like, you were able to treat me as a person and not a monster, and you were able to understand where I was coming from. Let me do the same respect to you. So I don't think that any of the outside interference came into their relationship for me, whether that's what we've seen in the Harley animated series, what we've been seeing in the comic book since then. For this one specifically, because it is meant to be a beginning for many, many characters, that relationship between them for me was nothing more than mutual respect.
Yeah, I agree. And this is what I was trying to say earlier, was that if Stefan comes back to this, this universe he's started, the next series I want to see him do is a Harleen and Ivy series, because I think that would be so cool and interesting to see how that relationship would progress, whatever way it progresses. All right, so do we have anything else we want to say before we get the heck out of here?
I will say one final thing, though. Zaz is not discussed much in comics and the movies and whatnot, because he's a serial killer that puts a notch on his skin. And I have to say that I was surprised they even put him in this. But he's also... He likes to kill young women. I was kind of hoping that they would have been fleshed out a little more from the stalk Harley, because he kind of stalks a psychiatrist in the Arkham Asylum game. So I don't know why they put him in here, and I kind of feel like it was pointless just to keep using a character that unfortunately you can never really use. But I would like to see a little bit more, if you have it for Croc, and if you have it for even Doctor Strange, because he was the first Batman villain. I'd really like to see what they do with him. Like, is he in baby steps, or will he become, Batman's greatest foe as well? So because I'm never quite sure what they're doing with this series, but it's definitely going to be an interesting one.
If you want to read or know more about Zaz and basically the animal that he is, I highly recommend reading the pre-Nightfall stuff by Alan Grant and Lauren Breyfogle. They actually did a 3 or 4 issue run on just him, and he captured a busload of girls or something like that, and Batman had to save them. But you really dive into the character a bit, and you see that he's all about blood and killing and maiming people, and when he's walking around not doing those things, that's the only thing he sees. He sees you mutilated at his feet when you walk past him on the street. So he's literally the worst case scenario that she could have started with, and did an excellent job on it too in the book. So
yeah, I think they just threw him in here because he's a Batman character. There really wasn't there was no outcome with Zaz. I don't know. I could be wrong.
No, they just... I don't even know why Penguin is in here, because he's not insane. He usually is in Blackgate, but sometimes they put him in Arkham. I guess maybe because it's too full, or they think he's always going to escape and he's a Batman foe. But past all of it, yeah. I guess you really got to know when to choose and pick which villain you're going to put in here, because it was just one too many.
I think it's just one of those things where, that image I mentioned earlier, where she's talking about how the villains want to tell you who they are now, not how they got bent. That image shows her with the Joker, the Penguin, Killer Croc, Freeze, Riddler. It shows her with all the classic villains that we all know, and I think that's just showing someone who may be not us, someone who is just a mainstream person who may have only seen Batman Returns, heaven help you, because it's the worst of those 4 films, in my personal opinion. maybe they only know him from that kind of thing, or maybe they only know him from 66 or whatever. But seeing him here, I think that was just a nod. It was not, and I don't like. Whereas Ivy, because obviously Ivy and Harley have history, that's more of a seed to set up the future thing if it ever happens. All right, so I think we're going to get the heck out of here. Before we do, Jeremy, where can the people catch you online, sir?
Well, for now, Facebook, I've got 3 group pages. I've got Podcasters Cafe, where if you have a podcast, like talking about podcasts, you can find me on there. I'm helping support anybody that's putting together a podcast. Hunter Queen, where I'm just, again, my podcast is just on hiatus until January, until I'm done with the nursing program. And then Hunter Galcasts, again, for anyone who has been reviewing or writing for comics or anything that comes to mind, my close personal friends, I put them on there so they can promote their stuff. Twitter, I'm not doing it so much anymore because I know that if you say or do anything on Twitter, it can destroy your career and your life. So I'm being very cautious with it, James Gunn and whatnot. But yep. I'm not on Ambien or anything, But I will say this, I am trying to – I got rid of it. I am slowly bringing it back. I'm going to use it under the Hunter Outcast name. Just give me some time. And, again, usually I podcast with Kendra and Edward every now and then. We get together and we do a Hunter Queen episode every 6 years. But
have you known them for more than 6 years at this point?
Yeah, I've known them since 2015, in all honesty. I mean, it was coincidence when I put together my – Facebook page and I was promoting my podcast at the time. She liked it and I said, I love your artwork. I love your can I interview you? And then Ed came along and we've been friends ever since. So yeah, we've known each other for that long.
It's just the way you worded that every 6 years. I'm like,
well, no, we unfortunately we get busy and it sucks, but we still talk.
Everybody gets busy.
But we stay. I mean, even with you, I've known you since like 2013, 2014, but
right.
We stay together through social media. We occasionally, when we get together, we can party all night long on podcasting. But yeah, I mean, when we do get together and when we will again, and even with you, Mike, I have a suggestion, but we'll talk about it later.
Okay. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, I'm old hat, sadly, and sadly, I'm getting too old for this stuff. What about you guys? Where can the people find the Hales online?
I guess I'll go first. Facebook, obviously, and Edward Hale. Instagram, The Sith Rules. YouTube, under The Sith Rule or The Sith Rules Ed. And on Twitch as well now, trying to stream some video games. So pretty much all I got a Twitter too, but whatever, I don't use it. I go on there to like posts that Kendra had put up. That's it. Kendra.
My list is forever. I mean, honestly, it's almost easier just to Google me at this point and figure out which one you really want to go to, because I'm heavy into the podcast world. Like Jeremy said, occasionally we get together. I'm a part of DC Comics News podcasts as well as Dark Knight News. I do opinion pieces and reviews for Dark Knight News and for DC Comics News, as well as Fantastic Universes. I do articles as well as being COO of Gothic Fight magazine. Twitter is probably going to be your easiest way to get a hold of me. That is @Devour all words, which is basically what I do. So if you're feeling froggy, message.
She's the superstar out of all of us, folks.
No.
Yes, don't lie. You know you are. It's a sad thing, folks, when in preparing for this podcast and preparing for the recording and reading the comic, I've had at least 3 different songs that I have, referenced basically about what we were going to record today. And sadly, because the recording industry is being a bunch of dicks, you basically get in trouble if you use music in podcasts now.
Really?
Yeah. Steve Megatron, who is the co-creator of the Geekcast Radio Network with me, he's in this
Contact an
big...
HSD.
Yes.
No,
I know.
I'm serious. Contact
I know.
An HSD. They'll walk your socks off. Just saying.
It's just one of those things where I'm like, ooh, I want to put just a half of a second of each of these songs in this podcast, but sadly I can't. Luckily, it's only for music. It's only the recording industry that has a bug up its ass. I can still put, Joker lines or Harley lines or whatever. So, coming up next here inside the pull bag.
I had no idea.
Yeah. I'll have to see if I can get the link to send to you off air that Steve sent me or something. Coming up next here inside the pull bag is episode 386, where Steve Megatron joins me for the new IDW Transformers continuity, as we're going to be covering Volume 1 of the Transformers series, The World in Your Eyes. So that's coming up. And then, folks, be prepared to eat a lot of pizza and hold the anchovies, because between December and January, it's all turtles all the time here inside the pull bag. We've got at least probably 7 episodes of IDW Turtles comics coming up between now and January of 2021.
Ooh! Do you have the Urban Legends series where Raphael is eaten to death by rats and stays dead?
I don't think so.
I guess not. I have that one.
Of course you do. You have a lot of weird stuff. You know that, right?
I know. That's why I'm the Haunted Cowcast.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining us inside the pull bag. If you'd like to get in contact with us or leave feedback for the show, there are several ways to do so. Visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on this and all of our other posts. Here are all the ways you can listen to us nowadays: Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, the home where our files exist, Spreaker. Leave the show's feedback in iTunes. Please do this. You can follow me on Twitter. It's at TFG and Mike. The network is at Geekcast Radio. The podcast is at The Pullbag. Search us out on Facebook, the Geekcast Radio Network. For now, I am TFG and Mike with...
Oh, okay. I guess I'll go first. Haunted Cowcast?
The Hales.
Yeah.
What the hell is that? As always, make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time here inside the pull bag.
Quinn.
Oh, you're awake finally.
The Joker. Where?
It's just me, B-Man. No Joker, no gas bombs, no city in peril. Just you, that tank, and me.
Why?
To show Mr. J I could really pull off one of his plans. See, he could never get these fishies to smile. But then I had the bright idea of hanging the victim. That's you, upside down. That way, to you, it'll look like they're smiling. Clever?
Brilliant.
Yeah, I can tell you're less than thrilled. You know, for what it's worth, I actually enjoyed some of our romps. But there comes a time when a gal wants more. And now all this gal wants is to settle down with her lovin' sweetheart.
You and the Joker?
Right-a, Rooney! I've never seen you laugh before. I don't think I like it. Cut it out! You're giving me the creeps!
You little fool. The Joker doesn't love anything except himself. Wake up, Harleen. He had you pegged for hired help the minute you walked into Arkham.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pullbag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback@geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @thepullbag and @geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.